or thereabouts. Here with 907 Pike, Alaska, and Kasilof, Alaska. Today I'm at the Kasilof Museum, and I'm stepping back in time to show you the old Alaska that a lot of people forgot about. So I think it was a much better Alaska, to be honest. And I wish that I could step back in this time capsule and just stay here, because this is absolutely beautiful for me. And I told someone, Ashley, that I'd make this today. So homesteading. How did they do it back in the olden days? Well, they didn't have to go buy a bunch of stuff. This is so cool. You can see a bunch of line pushed in there for insulation. And then they would have used probably river clay over the top of that. This is how you build your building back in the day. Just some rock. This, of course, has some formed concrete under it because it's a restoration. Take a look in there. So beautiful. There's even a baby cradle in here, and it looks like some old Orthodox wooden plank tombstones. I haven't got to go through here when it's open yet, but I'm sure these people know that I'm legit. They see my my videos. Oh, absolutely beautiful. I wish I could live in this house. I think this is what I'm going to try to build, something like this on the upper part of my property. In the old ways, you can see how they added the rooms. I love those. I think you call them a parapet, to let light in, to spread light, natural light through the whole building. Hopefully there isn't so much glare where you can't see this, but look at this kitchen. Absolutely beautiful. And hopefully you're going to enjoy this awesome experience to be able to walk through this. See, I work like a dog all summer, so I really never have time to do any of this stuff that I want to do in the summer. This cabin was built by Abe Erickson in the 1920s on the bank of the Kasilof River. The cabin was strategically located above all of the rapids near Tustumena Lake in a slow-moving section of the river called Slackwater. Early Kasilof residents made frequent trips to the Tustumena Lake for hunting and trapping, and it was a long trip up and down by riverboat. The snug cabin provided shelter for travelers for many decades. You'll notice this cabin is not constructed of logs, but of lumber of salvaged fish traps used along the shores of Cook Inlet. Some salmon canneries imported milled spruce timbers from southeast Alaska to construct their traps. Winter ice in Cook Inlet would destroy the traps, so they were taken apart after every fishing season. The big milled timbers were not reused by the canneries, so local residents recycled the planks for their own use. Abe Erickson hauled the timbers and all of their construction materials to the site by boat. It's locked, so I can't really show you too much the inside of that. A second. I don't want to mess around and fuss with anything. You can see just simple sliding windows. Oh, here we go. Just a simple place with a simple little potbelly, somewhat of a potbelly stove in there. Still even have the sleeping bunk. And this is what's famously known as a cache. You'd store your goods in there so that the bears couldn't eat them. on these long wooden stilts. And usually you'd have a climbing pole that you'd set in front of this, or a ladder to be able to get up there. This one's just kind of a small version. You could keep your bacon and your dry fish up in there. And hopefully the old bear walk couldn't get in there and eat all your supplies. This is a trail that goes down to the lake down here. There's some big brown bears here. We're really close to the Kasilof River. I mean, there's some really, really big brown bears here. Let's go look at some of the other cool stuff. I feel like a kid in the toy store here. It's awesome that someone's burning a fire right now, and I can smell burning firewood. Victor Holm Trap Cabin. Trapping for fur-bearing animals was a source of cash for Alaskans since the Russians built their first fur trading post here in the late 1700s. Trappers had to travel long distances in the winter by foot or dog sled, and often built small cabins at strategic locations along their routes. This cabin belonged to Victor Holm, one of the earliest known Euro-Americans to settle Kasilof, a Finnish immigrant. Holm came to Alaska for summer work at the salmon cannery and ended up staying almost 50 years. He built his home near the cannery by the mouth of the Kasilof River in 1890. This trap cabin was located about 5 miles upriver. Sorry if there's some glare on some of that literature, but it's the best I can do. See some of the traps in there. You can see this has some moss pushed in there. Let's say get rid of all your cold air gaps. This looks like it might be, originally it would have probably been old cannery tins. That looks like sheet metal. I don't know if you're going to be able to see in there or not, maybe through this other window. No, kind of hard to see in there in that one. This must have been where you'd keep some of your firewood. It's interesting how they used whatever they had for materials. People became creative and ingenuitive and did what they had to do. Simple rough cut way to seal the rough cuts. That's not a very big Johnson to be able to handle the waters up here. My Johnson was that tiny, I wouldn't be getting out in the Cook Inlet with it, I guarantee that. Spruce knees. Local boat builders use this part of the tree where the straight trunk curved into the roots for special piece of wood needed for joining the sides and the bottom of the skiff. Engine built during World War II for military use, serial number 1. Approximately 40 years ago, Mr. Phil Ames used his 25-horse Evinrude to power a Bristol Bay double-ender here in Cook Inlet drift net fishing. You know, there isn't very many of those laying around. 2-person sharpening wheel from the Hardy Burger Homestead and Fox Farm. For sharpening knives, axes, and scythes. That's got old power insulators on it yet. This is the Wendy Wagner cabin. Charles Wagner arrived in Seward about 1905, making his way around the Kenai Peninsula, hunting and trapping as he went. Acquired nickname Wendy for his reputation of storytelling. The Keener cabin. Keener started out in 1947 near Portlock, near Soldovia. That's where the hairy man destroyed a village. And that village is abandoned, and it has been for a long, long time. For several decades. No one goes back there anymore. It's the only village in the United States that was actually run off by Bigfoot. I really like this cabin too. Such beautiful history. These are fox pens for raising foxes. And I've actually seen one of these escaped foxes while I've been fishing in this area. But he was more of a chocolate colored, like milk chocolate. That's so cool to see, because I knew right when I seen that color phase exactly where that had come from in history. There's an old boiler, probably for steaming lumber, I'm going to guess. It's an outside setup for steaming lumber to bend it for boats. Just a guess, but I bet it's a pretty good guess. Fish drying shed. Got screen in there to keep the bugs off your fish. Meat cache. Some meat was pressure cooked in jars for preservation, but caches like this one were the common storage device. You can see how this would have been set up. It's fish drying racks. Here's the Kasilof Airport. Kasilof Airfield, 1958. Boy, I miss driving these tractors. This is a Alice Chalmers. I'm not sure which model. This is an old wind generator. I wish I would have saved these when I was a kid. Look at this, Ward's. Lothier saw. Man, oh man. What could go wrong with that? Goodness gracious. I believe this is a Russian chainsaw because I've seen one somewhere else and I can't remember the name of it. This one's a Wright. That one, the blade just reciprocates. A little cultivator. It's kind of a neat design. Plows. Cedar. I'm not sure what the green thing is. If you know, comment on that. I think it's a belt drive for something, but I don't know what, and it's a hit or miss. And this looks like someone made a custom lathe or something with a Singer sewing machine head. This is a territorial school in the 1920s. Fox farming in the 20s attracted new settlers to the riverside community of Kasilof. In 1932, there were children in the area to qualify for a territorial special school. This meant that the community provided the school building, fuel, and light, and the territory of Alaska would provide a teacher, salary, and textbooks. Local resident and mother Enid McLean was selected to be the teacher. The McLean family lived on the north side of the Kasilof River. The schoolhouse donated by Abe Erickson was on the south side of the river. There was no bridge across the Kasilof then and wouldn't be until late 1948. In Enid wrote about her first experience as a teacher here. She says, due to the hazards of the river, we could not cross twice daily, so our 3 children and I were compelled to live at the school during the school week, coming home each Friday and returning to school Sunday nights. What nightmares these weekend trips were, washing, baking, ironing, and packing for another week. This continued for 6 years. One spring, when the river was full of broken ice chunks and it was time for us to come home, ropes were tied to each of us, and with the use of a plank, we hopped from one bobbing chunk of ice to the other, the entire width of the river. That same tide cleared the river of ice. When the original Kosilov cannery was being demolished in 1937, the Territory of Alaska purchased one of the buildings, formerly an infirmary, for $250 to use as a new schoolhouse. It was moved from the mouth of the river up to where the Kosilov airfield is currently located. It would be known for the next 20 years as the Little White Schoolhouse. By the late 1950s, the community was outgrowing the schoolhouse, and in January '59, the newly constructed Tustumena School replaced the Little White Schoolhouse. Enoch McLean was still teaching and became the first administrator at the Tustumena School. This building was subsequently moved to its current location. It housed the Kosilov Community Library and other organizations before becoming the museum. Boy, could people handle living like that nowadays? Probably not. There's another cache. I hope you like this tour. I enjoyed giving it, and the glare is in my face, so I'll read through the comments here. Howdy, y'all. Thanks for joining me on my walkabout today. I really like this old stuff and seeing these old ways and how people did stuff, and especially their ingenuity and creativity. It's really a blessing. So thank God for this place. I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks, guys. Let's see.